Welcome to Tuesday Travel Chat. I'm Julia. I'm here with Bob Cook from Go Travel. And also today we have our featured guest, Rachel Dunham from Cuba Candela. She's going to talk to us all about what's going on with travel and Cuba right now. Teaser, you actually can go to Cuba right now. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, let's have a little teaser video to get us in the mood.
So, Rachel, what is Cuba Candela?
Yes, so it's great to be here with everyone. Cuba Candela is the #1 most trusted Cuba tour operator. We're an American company, so we follow all of the US travel rules, and we specialize in private, custom, luxury trips to Cuba.
Excellent. Now, how long How long has Cuba Candela been going to Cuba?
Yeah, we really got started in 2016 under the Obama administration. That's really when things kind of opened up a bit more, and that's when we got started.
Excellent. I want to go to Cuba. What, and I want to learn about Cuban arts, for example. Something you guys can do?
Yes, absolutely. So we're really known for being able to take specific interest and we can create a whole tour out of it or find unique experiences. Cuba's very word of mouth.
Yes.
And we've been on the island long enough. We've got our own team in Cuba that can help us out with new experiences. On our website, you can actually see different tours that are themed. So we've got an art tour, we've got a music tour, culinary, and then we've also got family, couples, tours separated that way as well.
And I understand you're just starting with a small group travel now?
Yes. And then we also have our first small group tour that's launching at the end of March. It still has some spots on it. So if your advisors do know some travelers interested in a last minute, it's already planned. As an advisor, you won't have to do anything and you'll still get commission on that trip.
And I know Cuba used to be a little different. We don't need a visa to get to Cuba, do we?
So there are 2 different parts to go to Cuba. There's on the US side, a travel license. We use support for the Cuban people. We take care of all of that. It's not something you have to worry about. All of our trips are fully compliant. And then on the Cuban side, there is a Cuban tourist visa that every traveler has to get to go to Cuba. It's included in our luxury packages. So we actually ship it to you and you fill it out with a pen. It's very simple.
Interesting. I know a lot of people have, with Cuba not being open since President Trump sort of closed down and COVID. What's happening in Cuba for Americans? What's the feeling for Americans coming to Cuba from your people?
Yes, so I actually just got back from a trip to Cuba. I went in December. The country is fully reopened. You do need a proof of vaccine or a negative PCR test to go. But as far as the experience, it's really honestly much better because there's not as many people there. There has been a lot of confusion around, can Americans go? Oh, I thought Trump canceled travel to Cuba. But the reality is he didn't. It's still open. there are some big changes, like for example, cruises can no longer go.
Right.
But as far as land travel, that has never gone away. So you can still go. It's very easy and legal to do so. So we can help you with all those rules.
Okay. If I go to Cuba, I've been to Cuba, but not extensively. If I'm going to Cuba, what would a typical trip be that you could create for me? I'd like to know where we're going and what we're doing and things like that.
Right. So our most popular is a 5-day tour, and that really allows travelers to spend a lot of time in Havana and get to know the capital city. We also, on that 5-day tour, will spend a day in Vinales, which is the Cuban countryside. It's the tobacco growing region. So it's this great contrast of the bustling city, the Havana that everyone thinks about when they think of Cuba, and then the countryside, which really represents the majority of the islands. If you want to stay longer, 7 days, we add on Cienfuegos, which is a French colonized town. It's got really unique architecture. You can kind of tell the French influence versus Havana, which is Spanish. And then clients will stay in Trinidad, which is nestled in between the Escambray mountain range and the beaches. And so there's lots of nature activities in Trinidad. It's a 500-year-old city. There's cobblestone streets, lots of art and music, and great shopping there as well.
And I know, isn't there a real vibrant art life in Cuba?
Yes, yes. And something that's so unique about Cuba that I didn't even really know until I started working at the company and going to Cuba multiple times is Cuba's unique because you have this access to the top artists in the whole country, and you can go into their homes and meet them and learn their story versus other places. You really, there's these gated communities and you can't access these people. So that's really unique. We can get you in to have a private concert with the top pianist or go tour a private collection of an artist in Cuba inside their home and have coffee with them and learn how they got started.
Wow.
Well, and I know, Rachel, you brought along with you a few slides that you kind of maybe want to get into. Why don't we take a look at those for a second? Starting off with, I know that you guys you're trusted by the industry.
Yes. So we are, when I say number one most trusted, this is kind of the proof. We're the only Cuba tour operator to have over 100 unfiltered Google reviews that are all 5 stars. I think that's the best way to get to know us, is just hear what our clients have to say. We're the only ones to be recognized by both Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast on both their lists. And then, of course, we're members of Signature. We're the only preferred Cuba-only supplier.
And Bob, I think we recognize both of those names right there.
Yes.
Fantastic. And again, like what you were saying, Cuba's open. This was news to me because we've been so focused on so many, every different country and all of the different protocols, and Cuba's just not been in the forefront of the news. So it's kind of fun to highlight this today.
Yes. And I just wanted to share these pictures. It's not a Go Travel agent, but this is a Signature agent that just did a trip with us in January. And so you can kind of see what it's like in Cuba right now from these pictures because they were taken last month.
Cool. And of course, COVID. What's the latest?
So I have touched on this, but I just wanted to really, make sure this is clear because I know this is the first questions everyone's asked is what's it like over there? Can I even get there? So it is fully open for international travelers. Right now, they are requiring vaccine and a negative PCR test. And then also something a lot of people don't know is Cuba's actually produced their own vaccine. And so they've really been able to keep their cases down. It's also an island. With the weather, there's lots of outdoor activities. So it really is a great place to go right now. And it's so close. From Miami, it's just a 45-minute flight. And then we an article just last month highlighting, us and why it's a good time to go right now.
Rachel, we already have a question here, so maybe we can just touch on that while we're going. Alex says, "What's the difference between the American Cuban side and the Cuban side?"
Yes. So if you are traveling, most of our travelers are American and not visiting like a family or for that type of reason. They're just looking to visit.
Mm.
So I would say that if you have a traveler that's wanting to, just go stay in family or do a lot of free time, we're probably not the best operator for them. But definitely reach out to us and we can help answer those types of questions. And then as far as, the visa, that's the same. So as far as that process, we can get them over with the support for the Cuban people travel license and the Cuban visa.
Okay, awesome. So Cuba 101.
Yes.
Love it.
So we've already touched on this a little bit, but just wanted to give you some highlights of, there were some changes to travel rules under the previous administration. So you may have heard in the news, the administration banned hotels or flights. You may have seen some of those shocking headlines. So I kind of wanted to explain what those were on the next slide. So as far as flights go, all flights to Havana are fully legal. So what happened was they stopped flights going to destinations outside of Havana. Really doesn't affect us. All of our tours start in Havana anyways. And then we work with private hotels and houses. They're all 4 and 5 star. When I went back in December, I went and vetted some new properties. So you can rest assured that any property that's on your itinerary, myself or another one of our American team members has personally been there and vetted it. And then also beach access. So this is something that's a bit restricted. If you have a client that wants to just go to the Caribbean and lay on the beach, Cuba really isn't the destination for them. And that's because their trip does have to support the Cuban people by doing some cultural experiences within the private sector. And if you're on a beach the whole time, you're really not complying with that license. But we can do a beach visit. So that's not a problem, but just wanted to kind of, frame that. If you have a client that's just wanting like a resort beach, don't recommend Cuba for that traveler.
Okay, so remember, talk to your travel advisor if you are, this is why we like to have that conversation when somebody calls us and says, hey, I really want to go to Cuba because maybe there's something that you have in your mind, but we want to find out what it is, what are your interests, and then your advisor can tell you, okay, this is the place to do this, this is the place not to do this. So for example, like Rachel's talking about with Cuba, lots of beach time is not a major thing on the list.
Right. But Cuba is great for a lot of different people, couples, families, solo travelers, friends groups that are all women. We've done all of those types of groups. Someone who wants a culturally rich, unique experience, history, art, food, those types of things. But just relaxing, beach, vacation, that's really not Cuba.
Rachel, I noticed that you are endorsed by the family vacation group. What is the minimum age you would suggest for someone taking a child to Cuba?
Right. Honestly, I think it would be the same as other destinations, and kind of the family's willingness to have to pack all those extra things. I will say, in Cuba, it is more difficult to go. You can't just run to your corner CVS if you forget Band-Aids or things like that. We've got an extensive packing list for everything that you would need to bring. But whenever you bring, younger children, then there's just a lot more equipment and you really do have to bring it yourself. We have had a travel advisor who goes all over the world and she brought her 18-month-old. So it's definitely been done with us before. I think it's really kind of up to the parents' travel style.
I saw something interesting here at your final one about the tobacco products.
Yes, this is something that came about September 2020. So Americans are no longer allowed to bring back rum or alcohol and tobacco products from Cuba. But you can definitely, while you're there, enjoy them. And hopefully some of these things may change soon. But Yeah, I definitely, but the first time I went, brought back a whole roll. They're so cheap and like really the best cigars you can ever get. But unfortunately, we can't do that right now. But there's still art and, you know, different like artwork and little coffee cups and clothes, that type of souvenir that you can bring back.
Basically, it's stuff that's not associated with military ownership.
Right. Yes. So most of, you know, the rum distilleries are definitely government owned, but
Mhm.
you know, the tobacco places, we actually take you to a private family owned farm.
Okay.
So while a certain percentage does have to go to the government, they are able to sell outside of that
Mhm.
to tourists, and that's actually how they make most of their money. So we really feel like we're supporting the Cuban people by sending travelers to those private farms.
Well, we've talked a bit about some of the restrictions, and most importantly, that yes, it is legal for Americans to visit Cuba. It's easy to do with Cuba Candela, and of course, coordinating with your Go Travel advisor. But let's talk about some of the fun things you can do in Cuba.
Perfect.
Yes. So I'd love to get in on the next slide. I've got some more fun pictures. Just wanted to get in those details out of the way so you feel confident in choosing Cuba as a destination. Like I mentioned, you can rest assured that all of your accommodation has been personally vetted by us. A lot of people are surprised that there are luxury boutique privately owned properties in Cuba. So here's just one example. It's Paseo 206. It's owned by a Cuban woman and her Italian husband. So they've actually imported a lot of the furniture, the light fixtures, the tile from Italy. So you see that difference in like Cuban and then Italian influence. They've got a restaurant and they've got great suites that we can put high-end clients in.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Very nice.
Salsa lessons, of course, when you're in Cuba, even our shyest dancers get out and get dancing with our instructor Elio. He's pictured here. We actually have a feature of him on our website as well. He talks about how he was able to save enough money to build a home for his mom since working with us. And so I think one of the most special parts about the trip is really getting to know the locals and feeling like you're really making a difference and a positive impact in their life. And they love Americans. They'll ask you lots of questions. They're so excited to meet you, especially since travel
Sure.
hasn't been, you know, with COVID. They're so excited for people to be back. Of course, the vintage convertible car rides. So you can't go to Cuba and not ride around in one of these. Definitely one of our more touristy experiences, but it really is a great way to see Cuba. So right here is the Malecon, which is the seawall that borders Havana. So you can just ride along the whole thing and see the capital city with the sea breeze. It's really an incredible experience.
And mojitos.
Yes, and lots of mojitos. We can do a mojito making class if you'd like to learn how to make a classic Cuban mojito, or of course at almost every restaurant you can order one of these. We do private cooking classes. We have one for more like standard travelers. It's a larger group, or we can do a private exclusive experience as well. There's a new restaurant at one of our luxury hotel properties where they opened up their kitchen to us, and we were able to do some of their dishes and teach people about what it's like to have a restaurant in Cuba and open a restaurant in Cuba. They opened it during the pandemic, so that's a really unique story as well.
And that's what's cool, you know, when we put people on trips, it's all about having those kind of experiences up close and personal. You're not just getting on a bus and being herded around. It's getting up close and doing something and learning something.
Right, right.
Some,
And even
something
our
you can put back.
Yes. And even our standard activity here, our cooking class, you start at a farm that's right next to the restaurant. That's where they source their ingredients. And they've got some organic farming practices that are really unique. Organic farming really isn't something that's common in Cuba. And they're kind of teaching people in Havana how it's done and why it's important, which is everyone is an entrepreneur in Cuba. It's really inspiring. And then Viñales, as I had mentioned, is that countryside tobacco growing region. So these are two people at the family-owned farm that you would see and get to meet if you did that experience with us. And yeah, it's really great. You see 3 generations living in one home. They've gotten electricity in just like the last 7 years. And so they can kind of talk about their way of life that's totally different from Havana and completely different from us in the US. It's really interesting.
That's nice. You get the countryside feel, you get the city feel, you get all of the pieces of it.
Yes.
Rachel, do you find most of the people that you are in Cuba speak English or a little English at least?
Yes, most people do. It's taught in the school at an early age. Definitely out in the farm, there's people who aren't as comfortable and prefer speaking Spanish, but you will have a bilingual guide with you the whole time, so they can translate anything that they need to.
Okay.
Awesome. And we're hitting the final slide. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Or again, if you put them in the comments, we're happy to answer them on delay along with Rachel at a later time. So any other final words, Rachel, while we're here about why to come to Cuba?
Yeah, so I mean, really the proximity, and I know especially now with everything going on in the world, if you're wanting like an international unique experience, but maybe not wanting to go all the way overseas, Cuba is really so close, and it's got that great Caribbean weather, unique culture, so you get all that. And then also, I'd just like to add that I know that Cuba can seem a little bit complicated. It's got a few differences from other destinations. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm happy to be a resource. You can email me. And then we also have a really great website with topics on what's the deal with money in Cuba? How do I get Wi-Fi? Can I use my phone there? All of those frequently asked questions. We have a whole blog dedicated to it. But of course, you can reach out to me as well.
I just had something handed to me. Someone asked about, is it typical to bring gifts for your host from the US? And what would a good typical gift be?
Yes. So there are lots of things you can bring in Cuba. Typically, we recommend like school supplies for kids. And what we do is we have a contact in Cuba that will collect those and distribute them to local schools, usually Centro Havana, which is a little bit poorer within Havana, but also like feminine products, little soaps and sanitizer, really a lot of things you can, there's definitely use for it over there, and we can get it to someone who needs it.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's awesome. So if you are planning to go to Cuba and you want to be bringing some gifts like that, we can give you that list with the help of Cuba Candela and kind of give you all those instructions. It's great to have a great partner like you guys. And remember, to everybody out there, your Go Travel advisor is just a phone call away from Rachel. And, if you want, we can have a joint conversation, however we want to do it to prepare for your trip, and design your trip the way that that will be your ultimate experience.
Yes, and the rates are the same if you book with your Go Travel advisor, and we actually have special perks for clients who book with advisors, so definitely recommend that you do it through them.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, we've been talking about so many different destinations, but like our advisor said this morning, Bob, we've got this amazing place that's like she said, it was like a little Europe that's so close.
Yes.
Down with Cuba, and it's one that's just not always on the top of our mind. It's time to get back to Cuba, take a little experience. Now everybody's used to a little requirement here, a little restriction there. We're all used to it. So now I think Cuba is going to be one of the easier ones to visit compared to some other places in the world. We're all ready for it. And thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's great.
We're going to end on a fun little video. Good. And in the meantime, we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another Tuesday Travel Chat. Have a great week.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Si la mides, te encanta, te despierta y te levanta. Beso que complace más que el mar. Mire, la vives, la amas, somos como el pentagrama. Cuba es una música de vides, la ganas. Si la mides, te encanta, te despierta y te levanta. Beso que complace más que el mar. Mire, la vives, la amas, somos como el pentagrama. Es una música vital.
Yo que he visto tanto puedo hablar con propiedad. Entone la historia de mi gente y su sentir. Nunca un temporal pudo apagarnos el candil, ni la pasión de vivir.
Si la pides, la ganas. Si la mides, te encanta, te despierta y te levanta. Beso que complace más que el mar. Mire, la vives, la amas, somos como el pentagrama. Cuba es una música vital. Senté la mañanita serrana, atardecer la sabana, pero la noche urbana. Llevo yo mi letra de Cuba. Como tú no hay dos, como tú no hay dos, como tú no hay dos, como mi gente no hay dos, como mi barrio no hay dos, como el malecón no hay dos, como Santiago no hay dos, como mi Habana no hay dos. Te lo digo yo, te lo digo yo, te lo digo yo, te lo digo yo. Con mi fiesta no hay dos, como esta noche no hay dos. La vides, la ganas. Si la vides, te encanta, te despierta y te levanta. Beso que complace más que el mar. Mire, la vides, la amas, somos como el pentagrama. Cuba es una música vital.
Buena fue, yo me dan Omar a montón.